Welcome to the video on part 3 for the tip calculator. We're going to make it so that the document actually has an area where the tip calculator calculation can occur and show to the user, and we're going to get that to display on the screen. We also might do a little bit of formatting to it, so depending on how it comes out when we're done. So some things I want you to understand when it comes to a HTML file and a JavaScript file talking to each other is that there's this thing called a document object model. And this occurred when HTML5 came out, where in HTML, when you're coding things, the elements are seen as objects, and those objects can be changed and manipulated by various inputs and outputs and other codes like JavaScript. You get to specify inside of the HTML file what properties, methods, and events occur for those HTML elements. And when I talk about events are things like when the user clicks a button, or the browser loads the page, or a certain amount of time has passed. Those are all events that occur, and you can actually control what happens when those events have occurred. And what we're trying to do is when the user clicks the button, that's the event. The event is clicking the button, then the JavaScript gets to do stuff. The JavaScript then uses its programming interface to be able to add, change, and remove HTML elements, attributes, CSS styles. It can react to different events that occur on the page, or it can even add and remove events on the page. So what we've done so far is we've made the HTML file have values that then get pulled by the JavaScript file. But what we want to do is we want to go the opposite direction now. We have a calculation of the bill amount times the service quality, and we want that total calculation to be pulled back and shown on the HTML file. So we're making those two interfaces talk to each other. So when we do this, we have to make sure, again, that the JavaScript can find the HTML elements. And we've been using that by using the get element by ID, but I want to specify that there's other ways that you can do it, like through a tag name or class name or CSS selectors, those types of things. But generally you'll see with HTML and JavaScript that they're using the ID, because IDs are unique and can never be used again. So again, that syntax is just grabbing the HTML document, getting something by an element ID, and then calling upon that ID name. What we're going to start doing now is to make the JavaScript talk to the HTML, we're going to use something called inner HTML. And this is a property where you can actually return something to the HTML content inside of the HTML file as an element. So this time, what we're going to do is, instead of grabbing something by an ID, we're going to set something. So it's going to be, again, that HTML document getting something by an ID name, but this time setting it and its HTML content using inner HTML to whatever's after the equal sign. So I kind of want to show you a quick demo of this. So what you have here is, when I reset this, we've got click me to change my inner HTML or my HTML content. So this is a paragraph right here called demo, and that's its ID, and you can see it's called upon down here in our JavaScript script function. When the text is clicked on click, the document is going to run my function, and my function is specified right here. So when you click physically on this text, it will change the inner HTML information of demo to paragraph is now a new paragraph. So when I physically go over here and I click on the text, it will actually change to that paragraph text. So I can say, like, hello friend, and I can hit run. It'll change it back to its original text. And then when I click on it, it'll change to whatever I've just specified inside the function. And we're going to do that in our tip calculator. So in our tip calculator, we want it so that when we type in like a number here and we choose an option and we hit calculate, that something occurs. We can't see what's occurring right now because actually we haven't specified how to return it back to the user, but stuff is occurring. What is occurring is it's pulling the information from bill amount. It's pulling the information from service quality. It's creating variables from those values and trying to calculate them. Now, I do have a syntax error in here because I've got this whole function and I've forgotten a piece of it. I want it to have everything for the variables and the calculation all within this function of calculate tip. Because when the calculate button is clicked, I want it to run the function called calculate tip. So what I need to do, and I'm missing my brackets to specify where this function begins and ends. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my bracket after calculate tip and move my close bracket down after my variable of total and that calculation. So now everything within here is being run in this order when the button is clicked as my function calculate tip. So now that I've got that syntax error fixed, I should be able to start running stuff, but at the same time, I need to make it display. So down here, we're going to create some text that the document can be taken over with the JavaScript. So just like we had over here, we had a paragraph where you could change what it does and what it says. So let's go ahead and try that. We can do a paragraph here, and we can go ahead and put like what the tip amount is at the beginning, which is 0, and that will appear down here. Now we need to name it though, because at this point we can't call upon it over here to do anything with it. So I'm going to go to paragraph and I'm going to give it an ID of final tip. All right. So now that I have a final tip, I can now call upon it and replace it. That's going to happen after I calculate the total. So I'm going to add in inside my function and make sure you're still inside your function bracket. I'm going to add in a display the final tip amount on the HTML file. And then we're going to use that same stuff we just talked about with the same syntax for document.getElementById inner HTML. So I'm going to go document, get element by ID, and I'm going to specify the final tip value in the inner HTML file. And that's going to be equal to our calculation of total. So we're going to go call upon our variable called total, where it's calculated our bill amount times our service quality. So I'm going to put total here. And then I'm going to go ahead and type in a value, choose an option, and calculate. And there we go, calculation. Beautiful. So you've got some other things that you can do beyond this that I would challenge you to add. Some things you can add in here are like making it have decimal places, because if you think about it, if I do like 22.15 and then attempt to calculate it, now it's showing me 3 decimal places, and I probably don't want that because that's not an actual amount of money. So you have those kinds of things that you can have occur. You might want to add in dollar signs and those kinds of things, but you really have now an HTML file talking to a JavaScript file and back and forth and calculating those. And looking at the order that those things go in, you've got this whole function of calculating this tip, grabbing the variables, values, calculating it, and then specifying it on the screen. And that all runs on click of the calculate button. And that's how you can get them to talk to each other. Hopefully this is helpful for kind of helping you get an understanding of how to get documents, HTML files, and JavaScript talking to each other. Save that code pen.